Well, a warm good afternoon. I'm Robin Fernandez and I represent Measurable in India. We are the organizers of IFART India. And on behalf of IFART India, and on behalf of all the partner associations who are here with us today as panelists, International Solid Waste Association, that's ISWA, Bureau of International Recycling, GIZ, Indian Waterworks Association, Indian Environmental Association, we extend a very warm welcome to the industry leaders and our community of attendees. We thank you all for registering today. We already have a good number who have logged in. And we look at some excellent insights for all of us in the next hour. Well, IFART India is a leading environmental technology trade fair that brings policymakers, key industry players, thought leaders, and innovators from across the globe on one platform. To get us thinking and strongly pave the way forward, I'm glad we have distinguished speakers, our elite panelists who are stalwarts from the government and the industry. We thank our dear panelists for joining us today and taking time out to join us today, especially on the World Environment Day. And thank you in advance for sharing your perspectives. The discussion today is being recorded and will be live on YouTube and also available to all our participants who cannot attend it, as we are going to put this on YouTube later. It's my pleasure to introduce our moderator, that's Dr. Malignus Shankara. Well, she needs no introduction, but allow me a few words. Dr. Malignus Shankara has had an illustrious career spanning over 3.5 decades, both at the field and at policy level. She is currently a member of government-appointed board of the directors of ILNFS group of companies. A large part of her career has been spent in water sector and economic sectors. In each of her assignments, she has focused on the introduction of technology and modern management system, as well as on citizen-friendly initiatives. It is our pleasure, Dr. Malignus Shankara, to have you today on this panel. With that, I thank you and I hand it over to you to take the proceedings forward.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. And on behalf of IFART and their fellow organizers, I would welcome all the participants first and the panelists for being here this afternoon. And good morning and good evening if you are in other parts of the world listening to this discussion. I will start with two things. One is a shloka, a translation of a Vedic shloka, which pertains to environment. And then I will request Mr. Mandal to play the video, which is very, very relevant in today's times. The shloka goes this way, and this is the English translation. It comes from the Vedas. Do not harm the environment. Do not harm the water and the flora. The earth is my mother. I am her son. May the waters remain fresh. Do not harm the waters. Tranquility be to the atmosphere, to the waters, to the crops, and to the vegetation. Mr. Mandal, may I request you to play the video, please?
Some call me nature. Others call me Mother Nature. I've been here for over 4.5 billion years, 22,500 times longer than you. I don't really need people, but people need me. Yes, your future depends on me. When I thrive, you thrive. When I falter, you falter. Or worse. But I've been here for eons. I have fed species greater than you, and I have starved species greater than you. My oceans, my soil, my flowing streams, my forests, they all can take you or leave you. How you choose to live each day, whether you regard or disregard me, doesn't really matter to me. One way or the other. Your actions will determine your fate, not mine. I am nature. I will go on. I am prepared to evolve. Are you?
I think this ode to nature is so relevant every day and more so in these difficult times. Friends, the world has relied on GDP or gross domestic product to be the dependable tool to determine the health of an economy and the well-being of a nation. Simon Kuznets was an economics Nobel Prize winner. He is considered the father of GDP, but he himself, I'm quoting him, has stated, quote, the welfare of a nation can scarcely be inferred from measurement of national income, unquote. As an economic tool, the GDP makes assumptions about basic standards of living, which can be different across the socio-economic spectrum of a nation. Better standards of living do not necessarily equate to better welfare, because welfare is influenced by several factors, including, but not limited to, mental well-being, cultural resilience, and environmental health. The Kingdom of Bhutan became the first nation to test a gross national happiness index way back in 2008. Creative, accurate measurements for these factors that are easy to measure is very challenging. This is often an excuse given for avoiding them altogether. More recently, in a path-breaking departure from prevailing systems, the government of New Zealand adopted a progressive financial policy centered on the happiness index metric. The new budget focuses on improving the prosperity of local communities. All new spending will advance on 5 government priorities: improving mental health, reducing child poverty, addressing inequalities faced by the indigenous Maori and Pacific Island people, thriving in a digital age, and transitioning to a low-emission, sustainable economy. Definitely a path-breaking policy that is worth emulating. And what do we see on the other end of the spectrum, juxtaposed against this progressive policy? We are faced with, dogs being thrown from buildings by medical students in Chennai. And very recently, we've been seeing a video that's been going around of an elephant in Kerala that was fed with a pineapple filled with fireworks, and the elephant died. And these 2 incidents are from some of the most literate, most progressive states in the country. The persistent debate between development and environment needs to be viewed from a different axis, the context of the cataclysmic event that we are facing in the form of coronavirus pandemic. To those who indulge in an insatiable hunger for all things pleasurable, the virus perhaps is hinting at moderating the hedonism. To those of us who believe in success at all costs, the virus seems to suggest a great deal of introspection. To those who believe in constant movement, incessant travel, fast food, tension to party every night, the virus perhaps is asking us to slow down. The coronavirus has affected almost each one of us in more ways than we could have ever imagined. Some good and some not so good. It has given us time to contemplate on the worth of life, on the responsibilities of human beings towards their fellow creatures on earth and in the sea. 1 month of rest has helped the earth to recuperate, to reclaim the health of the sea green waters and the azure skies, the flow of the rivers, the freedom of wildlife. We will perhaps return to our routines once the virus is behind us. We may adapt very well to what is termed the new normal, but we would do the earth and our future generations a world of good if we could remember the sight of animals roaming the city streets, the birds returning to sing us a song, the quiet of the neighborhood, and the silence of nature. Development can be sustainable, and there are several examples of it in the world. All it requires is more sensitivity and less greed. On this World Environment Day, let us pledge to carry this memory and bring up the next generation with the same sensitivity towards nature that my generation was brought up with by our parents. let us root for a measure that goes beyond GDP and includes environment and Mother Nature. We have with us very, very eminent thought leaders from across the world, from a kaleidoscope of experience, to share their thoughts on this very important day. This is the World Environment Day, but I do think that every day should be thought of as World Environment Day. We will move to the first panelist, Mr. Antonius Mavropoulos, who is the president of the International Solid Waste Association from September 2016. He was earlier the STC chair, former member of Task Force on Globalization and Waste Management, and former member of Task Force on Science. He believes that GDP growth is less important than economic resilience and the right to work. So over to you, Mr. Mavropoulos. Looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you very much. Can I share my screen? Okay, I can.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for this opportunity. It's a great pleasure for me to participate in your meeting. And I will happily share some thoughts with you. In principle, the central idea I want to share with you is very simple. Circular economy and the fourth industrial revolution are a much broader framework to understand and fix the environmental problems than global warming itself. And I'm gonna explain why. Of course, we are all aware about global warming and how it works and stuff like this. Now, there is something very practical here. The more we move in global warming, the more we become more, how to say, adjusted to its course. What do I mean is this? We have completed more than 10 years discussing about global warming intensively, but also we have completed almost 10 years practically doing nothing or very few things. Actually, the rate of acceleration of global warming is much faster than the slow response and motion of our world to the challenge. Now, that has an impact. We become more and more adjusted to the reality that global warming is inevitable. And this results to less efforts to tackle it and more efforts to adapt to this reality. This is normal, but I think this is also a little bit misleading. And let me explain why. I want to start from the broader framework. What is the real problem we have in our planet? The problem we have in our planet is that our economy, this green square here, is continuously growing within the ecosystem. So what's happening right now is that the economy has grown so much that it touches the physical limits of the biosphere, of the ecosystem. I think this is the big picture. And we cannot continue measuring the progress of the world only with economic growth. That does not mean at all that I ignore that a lot of countries are very poor and economic growth for them is very important. But there is a simple reality. Unfortunately, as we know very well from the last years, economic growth usually is not a win-win. So if we want to leave space for developing countries to grow and improve the lives of billions of people, the growth in other parts of the world should stop. If USA, Europe, Japan, and Australia want to continue to grow faster than the developing world, then physically speaking, in our world, there is no other space for development for poor countries, because we live in a world with finite resources. This is a key message for me. And it becomes very clear if you apply this approach to global warming. Let me explain what I mean. What do we need to tackle global warming? We need massive investments in renewable energy sources. We need massive investments in new electrification systems and new batteries. What else we need? We need to redesign the way we construct every type of infrastructure we use to reduce its carbon footprint. Good. Now, all these needs require a massive amount, at least, of metals to be covered. The World Bank has calculated that from now to 2050, we need roughly 45 to 50 billion tons of metals in order to capture the pace with the Paris Agreement. 50 billion tons of new metals, it means that we will excavate the whole world. But this is a condition to shift to renewables, massive electrification, and reduce our carbon footprint. So, huge energy cost. That because the only way to cover these needs is to go through a circular economy approach. Only with a circular economy approach, we can resolve the problem of the needs to address climate change. Thus, circular economy, in a way, becomes a broader framework than climate change. Becomes a new way that makes possible to fight global warming with a reasonable way based more on circularities and less on new massive explorations of metals, a new massive exploration of fossil fuels that we need to burn in order to find metals. And this is my point. My point is like this. Circular economy now is a condition to fight global warming, and we have to adjust our view about what is circular economy. What you can see here on the left side is the typical scheme of circular economy that is used in many, many cases, which is completely misleading, by the way. Why it is misleading? Because it shows waste only at the end of the life cycle of the products. In reality, there is waste in all the stages of product, from exploration of metals and mining until the end. What we need to do is to develop circularities not here, because if we limit our circularities at the end of the product's life, we do manage a very small problem, as I will show. We need to develop circularities in all the stages. And if we develop circularities in all the stages, we will be able to manage the circularities required for the most crucial minerals that we need to address climate change. So let me explain why this is misleading in more details. What you can see here is the waste generated in Austria in tons per year. Let me make it bigger so it's going to be easier to see it. So this small part, it's 0.5. It's half a ton. It's the annual municipal waste arising per capita. This is 5 tons per year. It's the total waste arising per capita, which means municipal waste is just 10% of the total waste generated, including industrial, hazardous, inert waste, and stuff like this. And then, for these 5 total tons of annual waste, we have 10 tons of annual increase in anthropogenic stocks. which means materials that are inside already our infrastructure, our buildings, our cars, our furniture. And then we move to 60 tons, which is the anthropogenic resources after use that are driven in the landfill. And then we move to 340 tons, which is the total anthropogenic resources used per capita. So if we really focus circular economy in this part, in the annual municipal waste generated at the end of the life cycle of the products, or even in this, we literally ignore the biggest part of resources that is embedded in our infrastructure. A real circular economy approach, a circular economy approach that aims to address the needs to manage climate change should necessarily involve the anthropogenic resources that will become the future stocks. This is the only way to avoid a new massive race to hunt the most crucial resources. Now, the good news is that all this discussion is happening during the fourth industrial revolution. And that means that the fourth industrial revolution provides us a new way, not only of dealing with technologies, not only new technologies, a new way to reimagine and rebalance our relationship with the world. The fourth industrial revolution makes the possibility to make circular economy a reality much higher. The fourth industrial revolution makes a wasteless future more possible than ever. It's not sure that it can be done, but the possibility is here. And this is the good news. If we combine the fourth industrial revolution and its advances with a circular economy approach in depth, then we can say we are able to resolve some of the most difficult problems of the planet, including environmental ones. Now, I want to finish with this. I want you to see this graph here. I will make it also bigger so it's going to be more clear. This graph shows our world, the technosphere, as it is embedded in the biosphere. And you can see the primary flows. Actually, we pump resources from the biosphere to sustain our civilization. You can see secondary flows, things that we recycle inside our world. And you can see recycling, which is part of the circular economy business model. Now, this graph has a very, very important message for all of us. Our societies to exist require to meet two basic conditions. Condition number one, there must be resources available so we can cover our needs. We can eat, we can drink, we can grow, we can find shelters. Availability of resources is one primary condition for our societies. The last 10 years, we realized that there is another equally crucial condition. We realized that as important it is to have available resources, it is also important to have availability of primary sinks to receive our waste. Because both climate change and marine litter, at the end, it's a problem of final sinks. We used atmosphere as a final sink to dispose of CO2. And now the atmosphere cannot any longer hold the CO2 without creating serious problem to the biosphere, including us. We use oceans as a primary sink for plastics. Now the oceans are coming to an end, to its physical limits to hold plastics. I want to put it in another way. What we call circularity is the ability of nature to recycle our waste without creating problems to the environment. The fourth industrial revolution can either enhance this ability, driving a more sustainable planet, or produce more products that will require more final sinks and will be more difficult to be absorbed. If it happens one or another, it's in our hands. The only thing I want to say and finish is that if you deal with waste management, you really like the famous Greek sinner Sisyphus. who was pushing all day a rock towards the top of the hill, and every afternoon, when he was very close to put the rock on the top, he was lacking out of resources and he has to start back again from the bottom the next day. And this is what we are doing with waste management. We are trying in an endless way to push waste away from the society. But this is not enough, because if primary sinks are not available, then no matter how far we will put the waste, the primary sinks will become saturated, as it is the case with CO2 emissions and marine litter. Thank you very much, and I think we have an opportunity, an historical opportunity, to combine circular economy and fourth industrial revolution to address problems. This is a matter of social and political fight. It's not going to come automatically.
Thank you, Mr. Mavropoulos, for rightly pointing out that all sources, natural resources, are finite and not all nations can grow at the same pace. We need massive resources to address global warming, and circular economy approach across all resources, the need of the day. And we need, and pointing out also the importance of primary sinks to receive the waste. Thank you so much. Our next panelist is Mr. Arnaud Brunet, Director General, Bureau of International Recycling in Brussels. Prior to joining the BIR, he headed Sony Europe Brussels office, managing their relationship with the European institutions, Commission, Parliament, and Council with European trade associations. He was also head of the external affairs team at Sony France. Today, he will be speaking to us on the importance of recycling. Monsieur Brunet. Request you to unmute yourself.
I thought you wouldn't mute me. Excuse me.
Okay.
So good morning, good afternoon, good night, depending on the place you are on the earth. Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a real pleasure to be with such high quality panelists and talking to such a large audience. I can see that you have 335 attendees, which is a very good number, no doubt. And I'll try to keep it short because I want to make sure that all the panelists have time for speeches, and I think it's better to interact than making a long speech. To introduce BIR for those who don't know this organization. So if you're kind enough to put my presentation on the screen. Thank you. Oops. Oh, excellent. So we can move to the next slide. Please. Yeah. So to make it very short, BIR is the Bureau of International Recycling. It's the Global Federation of Recycling Industries. It's an old organization created more than 70 years ago, 72 years ago. It's a not-for-profit organization. And we are basically the voice of the recyclers around the globe. So we are an advocacy organization, and what we mainly do is we promote free and fair trade of recyclables around the globe. And we will see that this is essential to reach the circular economy. We promote the protection of our environment. I'll come back to that. And we, of course, provide information to our members and to the stakeholders, including the regulators and the governments. We can move to the next slide, please. When you look at the Earth and the composition of our membership, we cover less countries than ISWA, but it's still 71 countries. We have corporate members, around 800 corporate members around the globe in those 71 countries. And we also have national federations as members. So by and large, directly or indirectly, we represent more than 37 companies around the globe. Lots of them are in Europe, but also North America, Asia, and lots of members in India. We have national federations members in India, as well as lots of Indian members as well. We can move to the next slide, please. So what we cover basically is the recycling and trade of those, what you see on the screen, ferrous, non-ferrous, stainless steel and special alloys, textiles, rubber and tires, paper, and more recently, of course, plastics and electronic scrap. Next slide. And what is important is because we have all those national associations together with us, and the number is not 35 anymore, it's 37 today. We work a little bit like the United Nations of recycling, especially during this pandemic period. We have had every 2 weeks calls such as video conferences like this one, where all the national associations were sharing information, coordinating efforts, and making sure that we were taking the best out of this very bad situation. So this is a very essential part of the organization. Next slide, please. Of course, being a supranational organization, we work with the highest level of decision, whether it's the United Nations, the European institutions, the OECD, of course, and lots of other global organizations. Next slide, please. Coming to IFAT, we have a recent but very strong partnership with IFAT. We have been participating to IFAT in Africa. Just before in Istanbul, IFAT Eurasia last year. We invited IFAT to participate to our global convention in Budapest last October, and we were planning to do so for our convention, global convention in Istanbul in May this year, which had to be postponed, as you can imagine, because of the pandemic situation. Next slide. So that's enough about BIR. As there's little to add to what Antonius said, actually. He said pretty much what is the situation and the challenge that we have to face. We have one planet and we don't have any plan B, which means we don't have any planet B. And the future of mankind is to make sure that we reach a sustainable environment and circular economy. If you look at the next slide, please. The reason why we have to recycle more as part of the circular economy is because every year, what we call the overshoot day is going further and further towards January the 1st. You know the concept of overshoot day? It's this day in the year where we consume more than what the Earth can produce in 1 year. This slide is about the figures in 2018, but actually I saw this morning the latest estimation for the overshoot day and the impact of the pandemic and the global lockdown. When you look at the situation, the overshoot day has moved back a little bit, which means a little bit further in the calendar. And we have saved 20 days this year, moving from August to September because of the global lockdown. So we see, as Antonius very rightly said, the impact of economic activities on the situation, not only in terms, and this is the very important point, not only in terms of global warming, but also in terms of using primary resources. I'd like to show the next slide as well when we come to global warming. It's an animation. Can you launch it, please? Yeah. So when you look at the temperature statistics, since they basically exist, it's not very good. It's getting warmer and warmer. It's a fact. Nobody can deny it, and it's accelerating. And this is honestly very worrying. So what do we do? And this is the next slide. Next slide, please. This graphic is not as good as the one that Antonius showed. I liked it very much. There is no choice but recycling more. Why is that? If we want to fight global warming, climate change, we have to recycle. Let me give you a very simple example, and I can elaborate further during the discussions. Recycling an aluminum can saves at least 95% energy and as many CO2 emissions. And you can do this over and over. Of course, it's not as good for all materials, but it's a good example that recycling saves CO2 emissions. We made a study back in 2017, I think, and we could demonstrate that the recycling industry was each year offsetting the CO2 emissions of the entire commercial aircraft, airline traffic. 700 million tons of CO2 emissions were offset by the recycling industry. And second, we need to preserve the primary resources, those which are not renewable. And by recycling, we are doing this by ferrous, non-ferrous, by recycling aluminum, by recycling paper, we save forest, etc., etc. It could be, I could describe this over and over. It's very simple to understand. And recycling is a key element in this circular economy that we all need, because there is no other choice. I think I'm done with my 10-minute slot. I on purpose made it very, very short. Next slide. So this is basically BIR, why recycling is important, why collection is important. As Antonius said, it's not only municipal waste. BIR members recycle lots of industrial waste from the manufacturing sites, from the production site. Lots has to be done if we want to recycle more, not only improve recyclability of products, this is what we call design for recycling, but also make sure that manufacturers integrate more recyclable materials into their productions. Last but not least, this is the World Environment Day. 2 years ago, BIR created on the 18th of March, the Global Recycling Day. And this is another effort by the industry to make people aware of the absolute interest and necessity of recycling. Thank you very much. I'll be happy to answer your questions later on.
Thank you, Mr. Bhune, for continuing from where Mr. Mavropoulos left regarding recycling and giving us that very telling depiction of how global warming has proceeded across the past decades and accelerating in recent times. Our next panelist is Mr. K.P. Bakshi. Mr. Bakshi has just completed his tenure as the chairman of the Maharashtra Water Resources Regulatory Authority. A member of the Indian Administrative Service, he retired as additional chief secretary from the government of Maharashtra. Mr. Bakshi is a B.Tech from IIT Kharagpur and an MBA with distinction from the United Kingdom. He has more than 42 years of experience in public service. He's been trained in Harvard and Cambridge universities. He has headed several committees in Maharashtra government, including the 7th Pay Commission and the Godavari River Basin Plan Expert Committee in the field of water resources. Over to you, Mr. Bakshi. Looking forward to hearing.
Thank you, Malini. Can I be heard? Am I audible? Am I audible?
Yes, you are, sir.
Yes, yes, you are audible.
Thank you, Malini. And thank you for calling me for this webinar discussion. My subject in today's discussion is around water only. And in water also, I limit it to the regulatory sector in water. As you all know, that regulators in water sector are very few. World over, very few countries have got regulators in the water sector. India, if you talk of India, then Maharashtra, Uttar Pradesh, and Jammu Kashmir. they have full-fledged water regulators, whereas other states in the country, they only have the act for a regulator, but the regulators are not in place. So in most of the cases of the other states, the regulators are nothing but the secretaries of the Water Resources Department only. They are holding the charge of regulator and they are discharging the function as a regulator. Naturally, the independence of the regulator is not then ensured in those states where the secretary is working in the department with the minister and with the other wings of the government. So complete independence is not there. I'll come to Maharashtra later on, but let me tell you one thing. Mrs. Malignus Shankara spoke about the GDP, and she said that that is one indicator of your health, economic health, very important indicator. Maharashtra, although it is only having 9% of India's population, it is contributing about 15% of GDP to the national GDP. So 9% of population of India, but contributing about 15% of the national GDP. You see the importance of water. She mentioned about the Godavari. Godavari happens to be the biggest river basin in Maharashtra, which covers almost 48% of entire Maharashtra's area. So let's forget about the other rivers for the time being, like Krishna and Tapi and all. Let's talk just of Godavari. Godavari, having the 48% of Maharashtra's area, also happens to be totally skewed river, where you have ample water in the upstream and very deficit areas in the downstream of Godavari. So one river alone, which is covering 48% of Maharashtra's area, is having two distinct areas. One, the affluent area, which is able to preserve more water and use it properly. That is the upper side, Nashik and all that. And the other, which is the lower the downstream of Godavari, which is covering mostly Marathwada. Unfortunately, water has been a very important partner in the development, but I would say that it's a silent partner. It doesn't have a voice. So I was just thinking that when I talk to you, what should I say about water? I have 4 V's, V for victory, 4 V's which are associated with water. Number 1, no value. When I say no value, people are not willing to attach too much value to water because they think that it is God gift. I keep telling my colleagues in the authority and also other colleagues that water is a God gift, no doubt. Water is free, no doubt, but it is free only as long as it rains. After the rain is over and the water is there on the ground, the job of collection, storage, conveyance, distribution, they need money. Therefore, to say that water is a free resource and why should you charge it, and or it is a God gift, I am entitled to it, is not all that correct. It is unwise to say that water is a free resource and it should be given as a gift only. Water, after rain, it has to be collected, it has to be stored, it has to be conveyed, it has to be purified for drinking purposes, and it has to be distributed, it has to be recollected and redischarged. Therefore, there are costs added to it. Unfortunately, that has not been recognized. So the first V I am talking about is that no value to water is the general understanding. We do not want to attach much value to water because we think it is free and it is in ample quantity. So why should somebody charge? That is the first V. Second, although it is a silent partner in the development, it is also common in all the developmental aspects of any country or any state. It is present in all the sectors. We talk of the services sector, it is present. You talk of the agriculture, it is very much present. If you talk of the industry, it is very much present. It is present everywhere, but it does not have voice. That is the second V. So first V is no value, or people are not willing to give value. Second V is it does not have voice. When I say it does not have voice, means all people who are working in the water sector are least heard by those who matter in government or by those who matter in the society. They are not heard to the adequate level. There are other areas which are heard very well. For example, all the developmental activities which are seen. You know, you have metros, you have overbridges, you have flyovers, you have sea links. These are seen, they are appreciated, people clap for it, and they also have a voice with the government. But water does not have a voice. That is the second unfortunate thing with water. Third is that, as I said, water is a vehicle. It is a vehicle for all development. It is common everywhere. You take any small development or big development, without water, you cannot do it. Simple reason, even if it is a services sector where people come and sit and do work, they also need water for going through the entire day of work. Therefore, it is a vehicle. And last, if you recognize that these three V's are attached to it and you give it a proper place, then you achieve the last V, which is victory. That means if you attach value, if you give it a voice, if you recognize that it is a common vehicle present everywhere, if you have done that in your mind and you have accepted it honestly, then you reach victory. That is, your destination to victory will be very much there. So now, having said that, let me talk about the three very important things people in the water sector must do, and mostly the regulators must do that. One is pricing. Second is attaching value to it. Third is using it efficiently. And fourth is reusing it efficiently. So pricing, let's talk about the pricing. As I said, people are not willing to accept that you have to pay certain price and certain substantial price for getting water, whether it is for domestic purpose, whether it is for agricultural purpose. So pricing of water becomes very important, and Maharashtra is lucky that Maharashtra had this regulator right from 2006 onwards. We are in the 14th year of existence of the regulator, and in the 14 years of regulator's existence, fortunately in Maharashtra, the agriculturists have accepted that they have to pay, and they are paying. You will be surprised to know that almost about 1,000 crore Indian rupees have been collected by the Water Resources Department, which is sufficient to do the maintenance and operations of all the reservoirs. Therefore, people in the agriculture sector and industrial sector are paying now. They have accepted that they have to pay. So this pricing mechanism has been accepted, and we do that through a public consultation process, and pricing of agricultural water, pricing for domestic use, and pricing for industrial use. They are all accepted in the state of Maharashtra, which is a happy thing. Coming to the second thing, attaching value. How do we attach value, and what do we do after the value is attached? Suppose we mentally agree that yes, some value has to be attached to it. Then how do you do it? Right now, water in the domestic sector is slightly, let's say in a city like Thane or Mumbai, you will notice that some water charges are being paid. But in a small place like Jalgaon, or in a very small place like, let's say, Banda district of UP, what is the water charge? No family will know. No family will know as to what is he paying for water. Therefore, there is no value attached to it. I am coming to the point that if you attach value, then you have to do proper pricing. If proper pricing is done, then water will be seen as a commodity which is expensive. And then we have the concept of water trading in Maharashtra, which is there in the Act itself, that you can trade your allocations. The farmer can trade. Whatever allocation he gets, if he is not wanting to use it, he can sell it off to the neighboring farmer or somebody else for a price. So trading concept, which is there in South Australia, has also been brought into Maharashtra Act. But unfortunately, the trading will not happen unless the value of water is substantial. Why should anybody trade 10 cubic meters of water, or let's say 1,000 cubic meters of water, if it is only going to cost you 25 rupees? There is no value for trading. So if you have to do trading of water, then value of water has to go up. Third point which I mentioned was that you have to use water very efficiently. All of you know that the population of India is approximately 17 to 18% of the world's population, but water share of India is much lower. And therefore, if you don't use it efficiently, then you will be losing time, and perhaps a point of no return will come where you cannot retrieve all the water that you have lost. So using it efficiently in all the 3 or 4 sectors. The first sector, the agriculture, where huge amount of water is getting used. 75 to 80% of Maharashtra is getting used in agriculture sector. About 3 to 4% is used in the industrial sector, and nearly 16 to 17% is used in the domestic sector. all these three sectors have to attend to efficiency in water use, so that whatever little you have, that can be converted into huge figures of GDP. 1% of water saving, I calculated the other day, 1% of water saving, 1% of saving in water in Maharashtra results into 5% of GDP growth of Maharashtra. So it is hugely beneficial. And the last point is that although you have attached value, although you are willing to trade, although you are pricing it properly, are you reusing the water adequately? Whatever you have used, are you just throwing it out, or you have attached so much value that let us clean it, let us treat it and reuse it, so that the pressure on the fresh water is reduced to the minimum possible, and we are able to multiply that saving in terms of GDP of the state and growth of the country. So these are three, four very important points where a regulator becomes very, very important. And I'm happy to inform you that the Government of India Jal Shakti Secretary, Mr. UP Singh, has been taking a lot of interest in telling other states that you should also have your regulators in place, just like UP, Maharashtra, and Jammu and Kashmir, because he has seen that having a regulator in place will put many things in place, and the indiscipline, which is generally prevalent in the rural areas regarding use of water, will get minimized. And therefore, the Secretary Government of India has been working in this direction. I hope that many states will see reason in that, and regulators will come in place in those places. With these words, I think I have finished my points which I wanted to make. Thank you, Malini, and over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Bakshi, for highlighting the importance of this silent partner in development, which is water, and recognizing the economic value of water and the importance of saving water so much that it could contribute to 5% of GDP. Thank you. Our next panelist is Mr. Ashish Chaturvedi, who is the Director in charge of climate change in GIZ. Mr. Chaturvedi specializes in climate change mitigation and adaptation, waste management, sustainable consumption and production, and environmental policy. His current focus is on policy and knowledge management aspects of climate change. He has worked as a fellow in the Green Transformations Cluster of the Institute of Development Studies at the University of Sussex, and as a senior fellow with Adelphi, a German think tank. He's also led the policy for environment and climate component of the bilateral Indo-German Environment Program. As a senior advisor with GIZ GmbH, he advised the Indian ministries and departments at various levels and implemented projects in the area of waste, resource management, and climate change and economic instruments. He holds a PhD in economics from the University of California, and his thesis explored the role of influence activities on democratic policy making processes. Dr. Chaturvedi will.
Thank you, Mrs. Shankar, and thanks very much for this elaborate introduction. I would like to talk sort of very broadly, and I think very broadly because we are in unprecedented times. We're actually all sitting at our homes or in sort of spaces not in front of each other, while actually communicating with more than 300 people from all over the world, reimagining our relationship with the environment. And I would actually initiate that reimagination by telling you a story. I'd like to tell you a story of a person we started working with as GIZ. So GIZ, sort of some of you might know, is a federally owned enterprise of the German government. It works in more than 130 countries around the world. And the agenda is essentially to promote sustainable development in its broadest form and shape. So sort of as the story that I want to tell you is of Mohammed Sabir, who was a recycler based in one of the sort of slum areas of New Delhi. Well, Delhi, to be honest, sort of very exact. And Sabir was actually recycling electronic waste for several decades before we started sort of interacting with him and thinking about how Sabir could actually start contributing to what Antonius and Arno have actually talked about, the circular economy. So although we're thinking about the circular economy as something which is sort of leading grand transformations of economic or economic cataclysms, well, the circular economy has been operating in different scales, in different shapes and forms for several decades in informal settings in India already. Of course, it was not called the circular economy. It was not always called sort of recycling or upcycling. But I think there were various elements of these processes which were prevalent in our societies sort of for several decades. Some of you would know sort of the kind of recycling of glass, of paper, of cloth, which is quite prevalent in all the large cities within India. And if it's of course managed by sort of relatively poor people who are also trying to make a living out of these sort of recycling opportunities and recycling choices. So I think pandemic and this sort of the cataclysm that we are in currently, it also provides us an opportunity to reimagine what we can do with circular economy models within the context of our country. So a lot of this, the sort of most abiding image of this pandemic is the loss of jobs of migrants, or the loss of jobs in the informal sector. And I think one critical element of thinking about our relationship at a very sort of societal level is to strengthen the capacity, strengthen the resilience of these poor and marginal communities. And what kind of relationship does that mean with the environment, for instance? And the reason I told you, or I began with the story of Sabir, is precisely that there is a kind of a social and environmental connect between the circular economy. So when you start thinking about the circular economy with a human face, you can actually start thinking about the role of the informal sector, the role of the kabadiwala, the role of the repairman, the role of the recycler who's working in the informal sector, and how sort of those jobs which are created can actually be upgraded, can actually create sort of long-term sustainable jobs for these people who are working at the margins of society. So before I move on to sort of reimagining sort of our relationships, I think we have to think about this reimagination at 4 levels. And some of us, of course, talked about it already, some of my co-panelists. So I think the first reimagination is at the individual level. What are we doing at our individual level in terms of better environmental behavior, not only sort of better citizenship, but also good environmental citizenship? So what is it that we're doing? How are we treating our own waste? How are we thinking about our own sort of transportation choices? And how are we strengthening the capacities of the most marginal and vulnerable portions of the population who are struggling to make their ends meet in this pandemic period? So I think this is where the critical element of sustainability and thinking about the limits, living within the limits of our planetary boundaries would come at when you think about the individual level. Of course, then at the next level, we have to think about is the level of organizations. So what are organizations doing? What is the private sector doing? What are institutions which are working on sort of production processes, consumption processes, even thinking of e-commerce companies? What is their relationship with the circular economy or with sort of reimagining a relationship with the environment? Does the pandemic actually provide a certain kind of a pause to rethink about certain models which were active, and how can we improve upon those choices that have already been made? Like one example during this pandemic is the example of more packaged products. So just because we are ordering stuff online, there is a lot more packaging which is being used. A lot of home delivery is happening. People are not buying paneer from the vegetable vendor, but they're buying paneer from a sort of a grocery store, which is all packaged. So there is a sudden spurt in our consumption of packaged foods, packaged materials. What does that mean in terms of our sort of relationship to the environment, and what kind of choices does it provide to the packaging industry as well as to the private companies which are manufacturing these products? That final bit is about our societal choices. So what kind of choices as policymakers can the government of India make, and can the government sort of subnational and national governments make, and also see at the supranational level? So I think the European Union has put a very ambitious package on sustainable recovery, And one of the critical elements of that sustainable recovery is sort of the Green Deal, which is a cornerstone. So almost 1/4 of the resources which the European Union is going to spend on the recovery process is going to be on low carbon sort of investments. And it will be climate compliant. So I think when we think about these kinds of choices at the sort of, well, at a national level, what are the choices that we're making in India? And given the fact that we're talking about a 20 lakh crore stimulus package, what are the green elements of that stimulus package? And how, even if there is no direct green element, what are the co-benefits to the environment from the choices that are being made by the sort of government of India? And I think this is where a lot of thinking, the push towards a green and circular economy, a low carbon society, is actually going to be critical. I would like to end with a note of sort of, well, it's a note of caution, it's a note of optimism, but it's also a note of challenge. Christiana Figueres, who was the UNFCCC Secretary General, she recently said that the window of opportunity of implementing the climate pledges, which were made during the Paris Agreement, has shrunk from 10 years to 18 months. And the reason why she said that was because a lot of the resources which countries were planning to sort of use for the implementation of their pledges to under the Paris Agreement are actually going to be called upon now to recover from the pandemic. Now, this is a great opportunity, but it is a great challenge as well, because if you do not work with the government, if you do not work with societies, if you do not form these alliances which are going to push the agenda to a green, circular, low carbon economy, I think this opportunity would be lost, this window of opportunity would be lost, and we would be really challenged to make a recovery beyond this short period of time. So I think I do not want to sound alarmist, but I think it's very critical to support sort of decision makers within the national government as well as the subnational government, and also work very closely with the private sector to push the agenda now. And I think this is where the IFAT sort of meeting is very important. But I think the role of organizations like ISTWA as well as VIR, plus also organizations like GIZ, is very critical to push this agenda forward and support national and subnational governments as well as actors in the private sector to make the right choices now, because we will be bound by those choices for several decades to come. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Dr. Chaturvedi, for pointing out the existence of informal industry of recycling and the importance of environmental citizenship and the need to engage with the governments and sub-governments. Thank you very much. Our next panelist is Dr. Dineshwar Prasad Singh. He's the president of the Indian Waterworks Association, as also chairman of the Patna chapter of the same association. He has worked with the Central Pollution Control Board before joining the Public Health Engineering Department of the government of Bihar, from where he retired as an engineer-in-chief cum special secretary. Dr. Singh has worked on projects like Koshi Amrit Payjal Yojana and Ganga Action Plan, quality mitigation projects for arsenic, fluoride, iron removal, various multi-village, single village water supply projects, sewerage, drainage, and solid waste management projects across the state, World Bank, and DFID-assisted projects. He's also worked on the government of Bihar's flagship program of Har Ghar Nalka Jal Yojana. He has been awarded Abhyanta Ratna Award. Currently, he works as a freelance advisor in his capacity as an expert with various organizations and continues to serve the society with his knowledge and experience. Dr. Singh, please. Dr. Singh, may I request you to unmute yourself, please? Yeah. No, not yet. Yes.
It's okay. It's okay. Audible.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Malignus Shankara, and then thank you very much for the organization for inviting me as a panelist. It's a pleasure to have here. I'm the president of Indian Waterworks Association. I request to put my PPT on the screen, please. PPT, please. Next slide. Next slide.
Can we put it on full screen, please? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Briefly, I will just describe about the Indian Water Works Association. This is the largest professional body of water environmental engineers in India. India and established in 1968 and has got more than 12,000 members across India and abroad. We have got the 34 centers in the spread all over India, and the activities are we work as an advisory to the stakeholders for the government, for the private organizations. We organize the national convention, we organize the national international seminars, workshops, etc. We have got tie up with the American Water Works Association and IWA. Also, we have got understanding with the Japan Water Works Association. Next. Today's the topic, the biodiversity is a concern that is both urgent and essential. Biodiversity is we have got more than 8 billion species of animals and plants that is supported by Earth. And then we have the biodiversity we can have on the land and also in the water. The service provided by the biodiversity is about is worth about 130 to 140 billion dollars. It's equivalent to 1.5 times of the global GDP. The impact, because what we do, what we are working not with the nature, but we are working against the nature. This is the region that we have suffered a lot. The main drivers which we are there, the land use changes, deforestation, exploitation of the plants and animals, and the climate emergency that has caused the biodiversity loss. We have lost about 1 million species of different kinds. Ecosystem imbalance. We have already imbalanced the ecosystem. We have caused the climate change, which described by our fellow panelists. And then the spread of infectious disease, which is recently we have got a COVID-19 pandemic. This is caused by our activities. Because we are spoiling we are damaging the nature. Next please. See, I shall be concentrating on the water part only. The COVID-19, which has caused that we has taken the entire world in the grip. Luckily, it is not found. We don't have evidence that COVID-19 is in drinking water or sewage. You have no evidence that presence of COVID-19 viruses in surface water and groundwater. This is like an envelope virus with the fragile outer membrane, which is susceptible to the chlorine, which can be unaffected by the chlorine. Then conventional treatment plant and then the centralized wastewater treatment can deactivate, inactivate the coronaviruses. Then luckily we have got negative aspect and the positive impacts of the coronavirus. In India we have more than 216,000 positive cases, and we have lost 6,000, more than 6,000 deaths. And the Indian economy has been witnessed a significant slowdown, like global economy. Pattern of water consumption is changed because we go on for the hand washing. We do 4-5 times in one washing. And then we absolutely, because of the shutting down of the industries, the pattern of the water consumption has changed. Nature is the positive aspect is nature is reclaimed itself. Environmental pollution has reduced 30%. It was Malignus Shankara has really other panelists talked about the positive aspect of the positive impacts of the COVID-19. And then the change in the practice, had luckily see the practice of better hygiene has been achieved by each and every citizen, by each and every person of the world. And this is really the government needed many much expenses for this. Luckily we have achieved this one. Next one, please. Next slide. See, what happened, because see right. Now the situation is the nature has been giving alerts, signals every time, but we are not able to take the lesson from the nature, and that's the reason that we have got we can do the reversing, reversing the biodiversity trend of biodiversity loss. We can protect the surface water and groundwater sources. This is required, and luckily the government of India has taken initiatives to achieve the sustainable development goals and strengthening the water sector. See, in the last year we had a drought, and that's the reason that the Honorable Prime Minister has created a new ministry, Jal Shakti Ministry, and a ministry by merging the two departments of drinking water and sanitation as well as the water resources department, and they launched the Jal Shakti Abhiyan to promote the water conservation in 256 India's states districts. See, because the extraction of the uncontrolled extraction of the groundwater, uncontrolled withdrawal of the water from the surface water, there's many areas have become the stress areas, and then launching of Jal Jeevan Mission. This is one of the largest scheme taken by the government to spend about 3,50,000 rupees. This is about it's about $3,500 billion is about 3,50,000 rupees, and that is aiming to provide functional household type connection to each and every house. As per the SDG goal, this is to be achieved by 2030, but Government of India has set up the target to achieve by 2024. And similarly, the launching of the Atal Bhujal groundwater project aiming to improve the groundwater management through community participation. Because community participation, groundwater management is not possible unless and until we involve the people at the household level. Therefore, we have got the PPP means public, private, and then panchayat participation is required, especially for the management of the groundwater. We have got Amrit Yojana. We have got the smart city project for the areas, urban areas. State governments has also taken various initiatives. Next, please. Next slides. Next. Before that, earlier slides. No, earlier to this. Okay. See what I said. We have taken. Next slides. Yeah, this one, please. See, we are the custodian of nature. Nature asks nature desires us to be custodian of the nature, and we need to work with the nature, not against the nature. Put nature at the heart of the decision making. Together we can act for the nature, protect ourselves. This is very much required at this stage, so that we can reverse the trend of the biodiversity losses. We can reverse the can have a good climate. This is required. Next slide, please. See,
I think Mr. Dr. Singh, we seem to be running out of time.
Yeah, I'll just I'll go.
Sorry to disturb you.
Yeah, please. Okay. See, we need to act as a nature-based solution. We need to find a nature-based solution. That's the reason that we need to go for the rainwater management system, roof rainwater harvesting, surface runoff management. This is very important. Revival of traditional structure. What we have done, we are just encroaching the earlier traditional in harvesting structures. We need to revive it. And then wetland, construct wetland and groundwater artificial recharge is also very important, and the participatory groundwater management is also required. Next one. Next, please. circular, we talked about we talked about the circular economy for the solid waste. Our co-panelists discussed much on that part, and certainly the wastewater, the water which is supplied to the for the domestic purposes, 80% of the water is coming from the wastewater, and therefore it's required to treat it to the level that so that it can be utilized for the various purposes. It can be utilized for the power sector, it can be utilized for the irrigation sectors, it can be even used for the industries, and therefore the circular economy is very important for the water sector also. And this is the reason that the 3 R's are very important: reduce, recycle, and reuse. This is the very important aspect of this one. And then integrated depots of NBS. The integrated depots means once we are parallelly doing the rainwater harvesting, we're doing the wastewater recycling purpose, and we are drawing the water also wastewater, and therefore we need to have a integrated system. Innovation of, we have got various innovative technology already there. SCADA system should be put in the for the STP, WTP, ETP, water distribution networks. Smart water net meterings is very important, because NRW, if you see any city of the India, we have got the 50% of losses, and that can be reduced by putting the smart metering system, so that you can have a control on this. Precision irrigation is also important. The irrigation is using 70% of water. It can be reduced considerably, because you don't have monitoring system for the irrigation system. That's the reason that because desalination is also important. At the moment, only the 1% of the global population is using the desalination water, and by 2025 is going to use 14% of the world population going. That is also the alternate solutions, and therefore we need to adopt innovative institutional business, and we need to have effective, efficient institutional setup. Is required. What Mr. Bakshi told about the regulatory system, PPP models is very important. The gap of the financial gap can be fulfilled by inviting the private partnership. Then we can have the innovative financial models. We can launch bonds. We can this one. The public participation is very important. This participation and contribution is very important. Say this is what is not a limited resources. Is unlimited. Is limited resources, not unlimited. Is to be priced. And therefore awareness and capacity building is very important. The mass movement is very important. And therefore, unless until we involve the people at this one, this is not possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Singh, for pointing out the importance of reversing the biodiversity loss and the importance of recharging groundwater, among many other things. Our last panelist is Mr. Madhukar Naik. He's the president of the Indian Environmental Association. He's also the managing director of Aquachem Enviro, with a demonstrated history of working in the environmental services industry, skilled in waste, environmental compliance, process engineering, environmental engineering, and chemical engineering, with a strong business development professional background. He has a Bachelor of Chemical Engineering degree of UniCity, Mumbai. Over to Mr. Madhukar Naik. Unmute yourself, please.
Yeah. Co-panelist, Madam Malignus Shankara, the organizers and the attendees of this webinar. Today is World Environment Day, and very special because of the current COVID-19 pandemic, which is affecting all of us. On this occasion, so we'll have to in Soli, Arsiwala, Mr. Ranganathan from Ion Exchange, and many such eminent people. The current directors include Dr. Kantawala and Yogen Parikh, Professor Shyam Asalekar, then Mr. Ajay Pupat from Ion Exchange, Vishwas Kale, and Ajit Khandeshe, and many others. Now, what I would like to speak on behalf of Indian Environmental Association and also myself is like this. Our relationship with nature is like mother and child. Nature takes care of all of us. This is what, again, the first opening video has informed us. Now it is our time to pay back to the nature. We'll have to imbibe this relationship right from childhood. This is very important. We have to catch them young, right? It has been proved time and again that we cannot survive without nature and cannot be healthy if the nature is not healthy. However, nature can survive and in fact proliferate without human interference. This has been proved during the lockdown period imposed on us because of COVID-19 pandemic. The rivers went into self-cleaning mode. The wild animals enjoyed freedom. The greenery went up. Fortunately, nature has self-healing properties, provided we allow enough time and also reverse our actions, which are in the nature. We cannot have lockdown forever, surely. We'll have to start our activities again. Therefore, not only we have to preserve the nature, but also ensure that all our activities are in line with our objective of preservation of nature. We'll have to redefine our goals and objectives of climate control and preservation of nature without compromising on the economic growth, which is required to sustain the needs of common man, including his employment and his financial needs. Nature has capacity to absorb the pollution generated by humans to some extent. However, the capacity of the nature is reduced over a period of time and further reducing due to surge in population and industrialization. However, we cannot avoid industrialization. In fact, industrialization is essential to keep the humans healthy, disease-free, and active. So what must be done? How can we rebuild our relationship with nature? Today, this task is not that difficult compared to yesteryears. This is very important because many people think that today the task of pollution control and reimagining the relationship with nature is difficult. No, it was difficult earlier. Many members of the new generation may not know that we have initially gone through a phase of non-recognition of existence of pollution. People were not ready to register themselves with the control boards for regularization. We have gone through the second phase when the development of suitable technology was a great hurdle and treatment of certain parameters was considered to be not possible. We have gone through next phase of financial hurdle when the cost of pollution control systems as well as treatment cost was considered to be very high. Today, the policies are in place, laws are made, implementing agencies are appointed, awareness is great, many industries are self-regulating, and finance is being made available. Therefore, according to me, but still there is a lot to be done on this. There is need to go further and achieve our goal totally. Though there are many human activities which need attention for the preservation of nature, the following need immediate attention. The areas of concern are partially treated or untreated industrial wastewater discharged into the rivers, partially treated or untreated sewage, again discharged into rivers, disposal of hazardous waste in the scientific manner, disposal of municipal solid waste, air pollution caused due to construction sites, vehicular emissions, industrial emissions, deforestation, reduction in green cover, cutting of trees and mangroves, and burning of agriculture waste, stubbles is very important. However, the solution lies in our firm resolution to fight pollution, our teamwork, frequent meetings of all stakeholders and discussions, respecting and valuing the resources, and reduce the burden on fresh resources by recycling, minimizing the waste, recycle and reuse. On the non-industrial side, that is the domestic waste, and that side, we'll have to adopt a combination of old and latest methods and technologies. As far as old methods are concerned, these could be using the silage for gardening, decentralization of STPs and solid. However, the new technologies have arrived on the horizon, and these have paved the way for many possibilities, such as use of treated sewage as raw water source to the industries after tertiary treatment. Use of treated sewage in power plants, along with use of sewage for this was regularly done, that is treated sewage being used for irrigation. Another example is the zero liquid discharge, or ZLD, what we call in the industrial systems, a concept of treating highly complex industrial wastewater at the same time recovering water. Now, government will have to do something. Government will have to put more education in environment and more environment in the education. Professional courses on environment, promoting skills, building the skill levels, building of the operators and the manpower, forestation, tree plantation, promoting cleaner technologies, promoting cleaner energy sources, promoting renewable energies, promoting low emission or no emission transportation vehicles, promoting biodegradable materials against plastics. The issue inside should not be limited to one form of pollution or the other. We will have to think about air pollution, water pollution, solid waste disposal, spillages, chemical accidents, etc. in a holistic way. Finally, a request to all stakeholders. We will have to have a comprehensive approach where all stakeholders, such as government agencies, be it a lawmaking or law enforcing, professionals, be it consultants, academicians, research scientists, designers of the plant, plant builders, plant operators, and industry, NGO, financial institutes will have to come together and arrive at a right approach. With this note, I end my small presentation in the time, as the time is short and the subject is quite big. I thank to the organizers, co-speakers, and the attendees. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Nayak, for being brief in your presentation. You have rightly pointed out the importance of preventing pollution of all types, not just water, and the necessity to be environmentally literate. We are a very literate country now, but environmental literacy still requires a lot to be worked upon. I think all the panelists, there's a common thread which runs through all the presentations and talks, which is recycle, reuse whatever you can, and save and prevent whatever you can. So the first question would be to anyone who can answer this. Pertains to India, but it could be anyone who could answer this. From Mr. Tariq Siddiqui, says, what could be the 3 most important interventions that India needs to do for environment protection in 2020? Would like to? I think Mr. Nayak has actually pointed, but would you like to highlight 3 of them?
Yeah, I think the most important interventions, probably he means intervention means it has to be from government side. So the 3 most important interventions, according to me, one would be to develop a comprehensive plan and for fighting this menace of pollution, and that will consist of promoting the education, number 1. Then second would be to assist in terms of finance or soft loans for common effluent treatment plants or common hazardous waste facilities. And third would be the real ground level training. GIs had started this kind of training earlier, and I'm sure ILFS did a couple of, we had some meetings with ILFS, and they wanted to promote this ground level training of the operators. So today, if you see the operators, they get trained in the job. It takes time. So, and they do not understand many things, which of course it takes time for them to understand. So I think these 3 things could be very important from government side.
Oh, thank you. There's another question on recycling. How do you see recycling as a measurable activity in protection of environment? So, Bhutan, would you like? Not Bhutan? Yeah. How do you see recycling as a measurable activity in protection of environment?
Well, I think that was one of the major points I made originally in my presentation. If you want to protect the environment, first of all, you have to stop digging into the resource that are limited and not renewable. And if you recycle metals, if you recycle plastic, you will stop using fuel as to create virgin plastic. If you recycle paper, you will stop cutting trees to make pulp, and so on and so forth. If you recycle aluminum, you will stop using bauxite, and you will stop using a lot of electricity to transfer message. Second, you fight climate change and global warming by saving CO2 emissions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pune. There's a question for Mr. Bakshi. Bakshiji, the question comes from Mr. Dhundiraj Pathak. What could be the win-win solution for managing trans-boundary groundwater resources?
Yeah, it's a very important question because all of us know that what is the availability of water in groundwater storages. Nobody knows that clearly. Not much of work has been done in finding out the capacity of each reservoir or each aquifer. So one very important thing which can be done, and it is certainly going to make a difference, is that, and I keep supporting that everywhere, every forum I keep saying that water should be moved to the concurrent list, not from the state list. There was an effort earlier, there was a discussion, public debate took place, and for moving water into concurrent list, but unfortunately because of the ramifications, it did not come through. But now is the time, why I will explain why now is the time. Now is the time to restart the debate and take water into the list of, into the concurrent list, so that both center and states, they can work on in the water sector. Once you do that, all the aquifers, whether transboundary, they can all be studied, managed, and regulated by the central regulator. When I say why is it possible now, I'll give you an example. Whenever there is a crisis in the society, people tend to look towards somebody for help or for support. When such a crisis is there, then normally people look towards government, and they expect that the government will come forward and government will help. So so there are 2-3 ways of doing it. One is create a crisis artificially, let people fall in line, let people start looking for some help, and that is the time when you actually do some bargaining and you say, do this. So by creating an artificial crisis also you can do certain things. Or when such a crisis like COVID is there, and people are generally accepting all the government advices, generally, I'm saying most of the government advices are getting accepted, but for a few critics who are always criticizing, but otherwise generally all measures taken by the government are being accepted. This is the time when we can also take up the issue of water not being managed properly in the country, in all the basins and also the underground. And if you start a debate now, it is likely to go through, and because the central government is very strong today, and the will to do something has been demonstrated in many aspects. So that is one part of the question answered. That is how to do it. What is the win-win situation for managing the transboundary groundwater resources. Second is, even if you don't do it, even if you don't have a central regulator or you don't move the water into the concurrent list, even then there are ways to find out as to what is the size of the aquifer and what is the extent to which it is going into the neighboring state or neighboring district. Once you do that, then you can also do it on a collaborative basis with the neighboring state, right? Knowing the shape of the aquifer, knowing the quantity of storage is one thing, but also you have to realize that in that aquifer, whoever is drawing, if you don't have a proper control, then somebody down the line or upstream will be drawing much more, affecting the lower side. So we don't know what, the entire thing is so complex that nobody will be able to say, suppose somebody is drawing more water in a aquifer of district of Maharashtra and Bhutan district of Madhya Pradesh, and there is a common aquifer. If somebody is drawing more water in Betul, who is going to realize that Jalgaon is getting affected because of over travel in Betul? These are the complex areas, and therefore it needs a coordinated study of all the underground resources. Then only you can have a slightly better position than today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bakshi. The next question is from Alan Anchinas, and it is perhaps to Mr. Mavropoulos. What do you think would be an appropriate balance between building the capacities for processing the residual waste of each stage of the circular model that is sufficient and financially sustainable following economies of scale, and on the other hand, minimizing as much as possible that residual waste in the first place? What is the balance between recycling, circular model, and prevention?
I think that the best balance is to reduce the waste as much as possible from the very beginning, which means actually that circular economy, it's not only circular, it should be an economy. We need to redesign the whole economic model and try either to minimize waste or make it less harmful. Now, let me explain something, which is the right balance, is exactly it's asked for. Let's take the case of plastics. When we recycle plastics, we have to remove a lot of impurities. We have to remove additives, colors, labels, okay? If we want to recycle more plastics, we have to have clean cycles. The cleaner the cycles, the more the impurities you have to remove. So what does it mean? If we want the circular economy with closed loops, a condition for closed loops in plastics, but not only, I'm using only this as an example, is to depollute them, to make them clean. So the more circular economy, the more closed loops, the more the need to develop proper final sinks for the impurities. This is exactly the right balance. A more advanced circular economy requires more, better, and much more target-oriented waste management, and it will make waste management an internal process to each and every company and industry, exactly as it is software today, a part of each and every industry. That's the balance.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mavropoulos. The next question will be to Dr. Ashit Chaturvedi. Coal-fired plants are the biggest sources of emissions. As part of mitigation process, major economies of the world need to decarbonize radically by switching from fossil fuel to renewable energy sources. Despite low per capita carbon emissions, India is extremely vulnerable to the impact of climate change, the long coastline, and the fact that 70% of population is dependent on forest and agricultural resources for livelihood. What would be the extent and magnitude of efforts needed to enhance adaptation?
Well, you have the answer with you in sort of, so you've experienced several instances already in the past few weeks of the scale of adaptation requirements in this country, right? So we're facing multiple disasters. The frequency and the intensity of those disasters actually increased quite dramatically. We've also seen that the pandemic has actually shown us the kind of resilience requirements of millions of people in the country already. So I think the kind of adaptation requirements that we had estimated, and there is the UNEP the adaptation gap report talks about some $250 trillion of adaptation needs in this country till 2030. I think we're talking about a massive scale of investments which are required to enhance the adaptive capacity along the coast, in the rainfall, are extremely vulnerable to the changing climate. And there's a lot of work which the government of India is already doing through the National Action Plan on Climate Change, as well as the state action plans on climate change. But I think it has to be now, sort of adaptation has to be now mainstreamed into every developmental policy that we're talking about. So Mr. Bakshi is talking about water. Of course, we have to think about mainstreaming adaptation into the water agenda. We have to think about mainstreaming adaptation into the agriculture agenda. We have to think about mainstreaming adaptation into the urban planning agenda. And I think these are but a few areas where significant improvements need to be made. And be climate in the near future, and the need for adaptation is immense. And I think I would, so I'm glad that this has been asked and this question has been raised, because I think a major part of reimagining our relationship with the environment right now is how to enhance the resilience of our communities, especially the most vulnerable people, and that can only happen with adaptation to climate change. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dineshwar Singh says, in light of the diluted EC 2020 notification draft, there is a risk of higher negative impacts of developmental projects. How do we see or reimagine our relationship with nature in the Indian context, given this dilution? This question is from Mr. Ishan Gulati. So unmute yourself, please. Unmute.
Please.
Yes. Do I repeat the question for you?
Yeah, please repeat it.
Yeah. Saying, in light of the diluted EC 2020 notification draft, there is a risk of higher negative impacts of developmental projects. How do we see or reimagine our relationship with nature in the Indian context, given the dilution of the environmental laws?
See, we need to maintain a balance between the development and the ecosystem, environment system. Certainly, we at one time we wanted development, at the same time we want to preserve the environment, and therefore the relaxation which has been given by the EC will certainly will help, but we need to whatever the laws we have, so that we can have a development, at the same time we can have a environment control also, pollution control.
Okay, just one more question before we try to close the session. Two more questions, in fact. One question from Albert da Costa says, why do countries like Canada and France allow export of toxic waste to poor nations under the garb of recycling? Are there suitable regulations under the aegis of United Nations? And following that is a second part to his question is it possible for a global body to own and license out recycling technologies for e-waste? And is there an optimal technology available in Asia and Africa region? Would like to attempt?
Well, I think yes. I can probably address the first one, which is a question I expected, actually. And I'm happy to address this very important question. We know that there is illegal trafficking of waste, and this is not our business. Our business is legal trade of recyclable materials under the Basel Convention rules. So there are international rules. We do follow them, my members do follow them, and we fight the smuggling, illegal trafficking of waste. What my members are doing, they are not exporting waste, they are selling recycled materials, and nobody is fool enough to buy garbage. They buy something that has a value and is part of the circular economy process, is re-injected into the production process. So we see that it's not countries, it's some companies, some smugglers, some organized crime people are exporting waste, toxic wastes, and we fight this as much as possible with the authorities.
Thank you. Would anybody like to take the second part of the question, which was, is it possible for a global body to own and license out recycling technologies? And what is the most optimal recycling technology available in Asia and Africa region?
May I make a comment on that?
Yes, please.
Listen, very recently, there was a proposal by several Italian scientists. Most of them are coming from the ecology and the philosophy sectors. That was proposing a kind of a global constitution to address global challenges that it's impossible to be addressed by each country alone. And most of the time, just because they are so difficult to be addressed by each country alone, they are completely ignored or put aside. No matter how utopic this seems, on the long term, we need to establish some kinds of global rules, and we need to put all governments in a position accountable to implement them. Now, on the other side, I want to tell you that when you talk especially about e-waste, there is no possibility to have a global licensed technology. Actually, if we want to resolve the problem of e-waste, which is the most emblematic stream and symbolizes how circular economy meets the fourth industrial revolution, if we want to resolve the problem, we have to move the way the software moves. We need open licenses, open codes for repairing, for upgrading the software, and for making all the necessary adjustments in repair. Now, what I'm saying this because the only thing we should globalize is a global extended producer responsibility schemes. This is a big step forward. This will have a global impact. Which is the problem now? The problem is that governments are much weaker than the big multinational players to enforce them. But this is if we take governments one by one. If we take them all together, they are still stronger.
Thank you.
Can I add?
Yes, please. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we have discussed on the recycling of solid waste and solid waste. I will just give the aspect of this water, wastewater. The Singapore is the only country which is using in the 40% of the treated wastewater for the drinking purpose. And if you see the Indian condition, we are generating 40,000 million liters per day of wastewater from the cities. And if we can have a recycling system so that we can stop doing the wastewater, and this wastewater can be treated, the 40,000 million liters per day can be utilized for the various purposes. Like it can be utilized for the cooling purpose. Applies for the we can apply for the flushing system. Therefore, now it is time to think about to we can reduce the water. This is very important, and this should be.
I think there was still more interesting questions. All of us, and it's not just today, but one of us very responsibly. Some of the questions will be taken offline and answered by the organizers. Thank you very much. I would like to thank each of the panelists, Mr. Mavropoulos, Mr. Bhune, Mr. Madhukar Nayak, Dr. Dineshwar Singh, Mr. Chaturvedi, with just one video, which is just 58 seconds long. And I would like to take with this appreciate.
Thank you, Dr. Malignus, for really moderating.
The monkey drinks water and then closes the tap. And I've actually seen one such scene of a bear drinking water in a zoo. I was surprised it opened the tap. This was in Nagpur Zoo. Opened the tap to drink water. These were the days of non-video, non-mobile. I was surprised that it could open the tap and drink the water, but I was shocked when it actually closed the tap after drinking the water. If a bear or a monkey can do this, I think a human being has to be much more responsible to the environment. Talk about savings. Thank you so much. Wonderful evening, night, morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Dr. Shankara, and thank you to all the panelists.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.